Welcome to the light, and I want to talk to you about David Burke's status hearing that occurred on April 29th, 2026. Now, some of you may have joined my live that I did right outside of the courtroom after it occurred. So thanks to you that did join. That was actually my first ever live. Now, I did attend this hearing in person, so I wanted to be able to share my perspective and things that I was able to see from inside the courtroom and provide the details and, the notes that I took and everything that I saw sitting directly behind David in the front row. And I really was seated directly behind him. And I'm going to have a separate video that is dedicated to a readout of the preliminary hearing brief from the prosecution, because I think that deserves its own piece. But this also will give you insight into what played out in the courtroom regarding the battle of releasing that brief, because there was a battle in the courtroom over it. Okay, so let me start from the beginning. I was seated in the courtroom, and again, I went in as the public. I got ticket number 13, and I just happened to get a seat. Now, I was seated in the very front row, and I was put on the left side, which happened to be on the defense side, and I happened to be basically exactly where they were going to be bringing David in. So when they brought him in, I was about, say maybe 5 feet away from where he was brought in. Now, when they did bring him in, he was, of course, in his orange jumpsuit, and he had a lot of chains shackled around his waist. And I will say this, I have never seen David in person. I never even knew of David or who he was or heard of his music until this case came up. Like many of you, I saw his booking information and that he was, 5'5" and 120 pounds, 125 pounds. I did not realize how small he is. And he seemed so small. And I don't know if it's the extra added weight of these chains being just wrapped around him multiple times and, this lock on him that just added this extra sense of how small he seemed as a human being. Or maybe it's just this weight of guilt kind of adding onto it because he just seemed so small to me. So he was brought in and sat in the chair. Now, he was freshly shaven. His hair did seem like it was attended to. It wasn't cut. He didn't seem to have a fresh haircut done. It just seemed like it was maybe styled a little bit, but it didn't seem like it was trimmed down anymore. Now, when he sat down, the sheriff did have to also lock him in to where he was sitting. And the first thing that his attorney did was she leaned over, and again, because I'm sitting right there, I could see, is she just said to him, she said, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" He shook his head and he did respond to her, yes. Now, the first thing that the judge did bring up was regards to scheduling, because they were going to cover, this was a status hearing, right? So they wanted to talk about the preliminary hearing. So she brought up the date of May 1st, and she brought up the fact that there could be protests in the area at City Hall. And she wanted to know if anybody had concerns about that, they could delay it, wanted to address that. So she asked the defense, and that is when the defense brought up the fact that, well, actually, we would like to ask overall for the delay to the date of May 26th, which I'm sure some of you have heard. And they brought up the fact that they wanted to delay, obviously, because of the discovery and to be able to have a fair hearing to go through all of it. And, one of the factors mentioned was specifically the search warrants that they have, wanting to make sure that all of them were unsealed because of the significant amount of them. And if you have not heard, there are 54 total search warrants in this case as of right now that need to be unsealed. Now, when this was brought up, the judge also was able to clarify that she was going to make sure to unseal all of those and would sign off on it today to make sure that these would be unsealed, that the defense would be able to access all of them. But the defense main case was feeling that they needed that time to do that. And in order for them to have a fair hearing, they need time to go through more of the discovery. Am I surprised? Not completely. It was a little bit of a 50-50. It was pretty aggressive to go into this with a speedy hearing after we hear the amount of discovery that they did have. Again, they were pushing for it. Now, the judge did go to the prosecution and ask Beth how she felt on this. Beth adamantly opposed to this. Beth Silverman made it very clear that she opposed the delay because she said that they were ready. They sent out subpoenas. She let witnesses know that they needed to come in to testify and that, the defense asked for this date. They were ready for it. And she continued to, voice this opposition to it. She also brought up something about somebody on her team, like an officer that would be out between the dates of June 1st through 5th, which also triggered the judge to mention that the court would be dark from the dates of June 1st through June 8th. So that was something to mention, that if they do start this hearing on May 26th, that they would need to really kind of wrap it up before June 1st because of the court being out from the June 1st through June 8th dates. So again, one of the biggest issues with Beth is that she needed to make sure to verify with witnesses that they can handle the scheduling change to be able to come back in with the new date. She needed to talk to her people, but that otherwise, after going back and forth, that the people would be agreeable to the new date. Now, the judge did at this point check in with David on everything, if, he was okay with it. At this point, he did give an audible response and he responded with a yes, ma'am. Now that they addressed the date for the preliminary hearing, the judge wanted to check in on if they would hold a status conference before this. So essentially what we were there for as it was. They determined that they would have a status conference on May 12th at 8:30 a.m. So next steps, that is essentially what we are planning for the next courtroom hearing date is, again, May 12th at 8:30 a.m. So if you need to mark your calendars, that's what we're looking for the next David court hearing. The next point of order that came up in the courtroom was about an oral protective order on the search warrants and the affidavits. So these 54 that were mentioned previously. And this part was about the fact that once they're unsealed, is that the judge only wants them to make sure that they're only shared with the litigation team. Essentially, she wants to make sure that there are no leaks, and she really doesn't want, paper copies out there. Specifically, she does not want any physical copy to ever be given to David. And she made sure to kind of address this too and make sure that he was aware of it. So the instruction was that he gets no physical papers in jail. And his attorney, Blair, also clarified that when they go to meet him in jail and have their meetings about his case with him, so obviously they take him to a different room and they meet with him. She even clarified, so can I show him a physical piece of paper? Like, that's fine. He just can't take it with him. The judge said yes. And if anything else comes up, obviously she can make a motion for it. But, he doesn't have a tablet. He does not have a computer to view things. But sometimes when you meet with your attorney in jail, you can take casework back with you to your cell to kind of go over it, review things. However, the judge wants to make sure that he gets no physical papers in jail and is able to bring them back. And the reasoning for this is that she very clearly does not want anything potentially leaking or getting out. She really wants to keep these things sealed. And when she gave these instructions, David was paying attention at this time, and he would just kind of sit there and he would just kind of nod along like he understood it. The next part was just a very quick flew over that they were going to be unsealing the grand jury exhibit transcripts, and then the next part was something that I keep thinking of, but nobody else is probably thinking of it, just me, and it's probably like not that big of a deal, but the judge out of nowhere just pulls from the side of her desk like just lifts up this massive, like, think of the size of a ream of papers, like for a printer, right? Like if you were to buy that size, but in a manila folder. And then another stack about that high on top of it. So pretty hefty stack. And she goes, this came in the mail today. And I'm thinking, oh, we're getting mail deliveries now in court for the defense. And she's like, so I just want to show here too, if the bailiff wants to come up. So the sheriff goes up and deliver it to the defense. And she's like, just want to put on the record, that it's sealed. It has not been opened. And it was something that they were expecting. So I think the prosecution was obviously aware of this too, that it's something was to be delivered to them. So Blair had it. She stood up and then gave it to somebody that was on her team who was sitting right in front of me. She kind of like handed it to her. And the girl in front of me then put it on the chair right in front of me. And obviously there's like a little divider right in front of me. And I am somebody that can wear what I'm thinking in every expression on my face. The poor bailiff that had moved it, that was diagonal to me. I think I might have slightly been killing him too, because I know he was looking at me, because I was like, and then the woman next to me was also kind of like, and it was just like, are we going to address the elephant in the room? Are we not going to say what this was that was just handed off? What is it? What's in the package? Like, is it just papers? Was it discovery? Is it just discovery? And also, if it's papers, that's a lot of papers. Is it just fully papers? And if it is, who's going through that? I'm thinking too, like, that's a big other bill to David to go through all those papers, to sort through it. Is it not papers? Is it like electronical devices of terabytes of something to go through? Is it like, what is it? It was handed off and I can't stop thinking about what was in it. And I'm a very good listener, and I felt like I was listening the whole time. And I know I was listening, and I'm like, did I miss something? But I couldn't have missed something, because the nice lady next to me also didn't know what was in it. And I felt like the bailiff also didn't hear what was in it, because I felt like he was smirking at me making faces, because I felt like nobody knew what was in the package, and we all were just going to ignore what was in the package. And I wanted to know what was in the package. And it's going to bother me. So if anybody else was in that courtroom and can tell me or ease my mind of what the heck was in the package, can you let me know? It's going to bother me. Again, I'm sure it's some type of discovery, whatever, but like, I wish I knew. It's just sitting right there. I was on my best behavior, but it was just sitting right there. And my face was facing on that one. Okay, moving on. For me and my obsession with the mail delivery during court. The preliminary hearing brief. This was the next big discussion in court, honestly. So this preliminary hearing brief, this 8-page document, which is what came out today, right? This was the big topic of discussion. This was a fight, because this might not have come out today. And this is what happened. So this apparently was filed this morning by Beth Silverman's team. And Blair brought it up because she brought it up and saw that it was filed this morning. She said that she had not had time to file a motion, basically, opposing it. And she waved up a, piece of paper in her hand, like, I have a motion right here, though. Like, I, would like to show, and I could have copies. I can hand it to the other side. And I wrote kind of like what she said was that basically she had concern with extreme media attention. Those were her specific words on this case, extreme media attention. She also stated that she thinks the hearing brief is a one-sided view with no evidence presented. And by that, she's meaning that, there's no evidence presented in a courtroom. And she was stating that she is concerned with a jury pool being tainted and concerned that witnesses have not yet testified and that the brief could undermine all of that. Everything that she was fighting for was just, she really, really does not want that brief to go out. She felt that it could jeopardize David's presumption of innocence. Beth's response, when Beth responds in a courtroom, the way she responds just gets me every time, because she's just like, I haven't seen this motion that she has, so I can't speak to that. And I'm just like, girl. And she just was like, she mentioned specifically, she said, she noted that there's other notable cases going on even right now. So without saying it, she's kind of referencing the Nick Reiner case that was, going on in the same building. And that many people don't pay attention, basically, to all these cases. That this is Los Angeles. There's a lot of people in this city. Not everyone's paying attention to criminal cases and all these details and everything going on. So there's plenty of people to pull from in this city to get a jury pool that you don't have to worry about it tainting everybody. And that this is not something that is a one-sided view. This is the prosecution's case that is to be presented before the preliminary hearing based on the facts that they have in their case that they're going to show. The judge did reference some other cases and have her own thing, but she most importantly did reference that the fact that Los Angeles has 9.69 million residents and we're the most populous county, and that even though this is what she would consider a high-profile case, that this case is not unique and that there are tons of cases like his. There's tons of unaliving cases and tons of high-profile cases of this stature. So this is really nothing uncommon in Los Angeles County. So once all was said and done, eventually that's what led to the decision that the judge decided the preliminary hearing brief from the prosecution would not be sealed. And that's what allowed that 8-page document with all of the information that came out to be released to the public that the defense fully wanted to keep sealed. And I think we can see why now. I think we can understand why they fought so hard. I'm sure when they saw that filed this morning, it probably gave them a mini heart attack. But that's just purely speculative on my part. Now, to wrap it up, when the judge ended everything, she did say to David that, she would see him again on May 12th. And at that point, David did have another audible response, and he did respond with, "Thank you, Your Honor." Now, I'm sure many of you are wondering, how was David? What else happened? What did he seem like? Etc., etc. So I can answer that. Because sitting right behind him, I tried to just kind of get a feel for just how he was and just his behaviors. I'm a pretty attentive person. What I can say, again, this is my take on things. Somebody else's could be very different. Somebody else could have a different viewpoint. First off, again, the word against small is something that comes to mind. He just seemed small. He just kind of just like hunched over a lot, just kind of in his seat, like, just kind of like that. And then the biggest thing I could notice, so because of where he was sat in front of me and the way that the courtroom was set up, I happened to be in that position that in front of him, there's another desk like where somebody else sits like kind of near the judge. And there happened to be a piece of, I don't know if it's from COVID era or just still there, but like a piece of plexiglass. And because there's that piece of plexiglass, it actually gave me a little vantage point of kind of a reflection. Because of that, I was able to get a view of the front of his face a little bit. And that I was trying to see where he was looking. And if he was looking, even what was going on with his eyes. Like, was he paying attention? Was he looking? And I was trying to see if he was looking anywhere at all, what was going on with that situation. What it looked like to me mostly is like I couldn't see a lot of whites of his eyes, is it looked like his eyes were mostly down, like lids. And in front of that table where they were in front of the judge there, it looked to me from his angle is that he seemed to find a focal point. Like there was a little speaker there. It seemed like he found a focal point, and disassociated. I think a lot. I think he was listening because, like I said, when the judge would give an instruction or anything like that, he would nod. If he had to give a response, he did like 2 or 3 times that he did. But it felt very dissociative, like find a vocal point and just look. He didn't move around much. Like his feet were mostly next to each other on the ground. At a few points, he crossed his legs. But I heard I wasn't there at the last hearing, but that he kind of moved around a few times. It didn't seem like that. It seemed a little bit out of it. I don't know if that's from sitting in jail for a longer period of time. Maybe that's setting in. Who knows how much time he does sit with his defense team. You know, I wonder if some of the day-to-day of sitting in that jail cell has started to get him, and that's the best thing he can do is disassociate while in there, and some of this guilt is starting to get to him. Again, that's why I say small. He looks and seems small and weak and just out of it. Yeah, that's the best way I can describe it. But that was the time in the courtroom. I just wanted to give you my perspective from being there. After I left, I did go outside too. And once I found a quiet spot, I was on live for I feel like an hour and a half with people, and I answered questions and stuff and went over a recap a couple times with people that were able to join. So I do intend to be at future hearings and trial, especially if the trial's this summer. It's a little easier for me to go depending on, if it's school hours, if it's first thing in the morning. I explained to people on live, I am a single parent, so getting there at 8:30 in the morning does not align with the school schedule. And I explained to people that were there that I do not take for granted that my daughter is what Celeste's age was pretty much. She's about to turn 14 in just a couple months in July. So I don't take for granted that I get to drive my daughter to school every morning and I have her here and I get to parent her. So I have no problem that I get to drive her to school. And I love that I get to do that. What that does mean is that I can't go to an 8:30 a.m. court hearing time. I just can't. After school drop off, I am happy to take the train. And if there's a spot for some reason, if there's some opening I can get in, then cool. If I go in after lunch, fine. If it's an afternoon thing, great. If the trial happens during the summer, that's more flexible, my schedule, and I can go in. So I will go there whenever I can, and I will report from there anytime that I'm able to. During the school schedule, 8:30 a.m. could be difficult. Again, I will prioritize my daughter because I'm very lucky to have her here. I hope my perspective helped shed some light onto things and how this preliminary hearing got out, and maybe, how things went down inside of the courtroom and the inner workings of it. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know, and I'm happy to try to answer them to the best of my ability. Please remember that these are just all my personal opinions and what I observed from my point of view. I do have to say that everyone is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. All of these crimes are alleged at this time. However, thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, what happens in the dark will always come to the light. If you haven't yet, please make sure that you are following me for more updates on this case and many others that I do cover. Please remember to be kind to one another, stay safe, and as always, I will see you all in the next one.